Yo, what's going on guys? So I've made multiple videos where I said the focus on graphics is in my opinion kind of ruining gaming, and this video is a perfect example. I've also made a video addressing the exact subject that we're going to be talking about today, and that being Monster Hunter Wilds optimization. Because when it had its first beta test, the optimization was terrible. But anyway, we're going to be going over an article today, basically covering the performance of this game. Monster Hunter Wilds struggles to run native 1080p using the most popular GPU on Steam, NVIDIA's RTX 3060. Even RTX owners are in trouble now. Now, I understand that the RTX 3060 is a bit of an old card at this point, it's about 4 years old. So, it's unrealistic to expect 4K 60 out of it, but I went and watched a video of a benchmark test using the 3060. Look at this shit, dude. Not even an average of 60 FPS at 1080p with an upscaler? You got better performance on Monster Hunter Worlds playing at 4K medium with DLSS than you do on Monster Hunter Wilds with 1080p medium settings and an upscaler. And the crazy part is, Monster Hunter Wilds does not even look that much better than World. At the end of the day, is it really worth having to constantly upgrade hardware, spend $500 every couple years for 3% better graphical fidelity? Personally, I don't think so. I do not understand these people who sit around and they whack their 1-inch willies to graphical reflections in games that you're not even going to notice unless you literally stand still and stare at them. Modern PC gaming has become increasingly demanding compared to games from 5 to 10 years ago. We saw this with Indiana Jones and the Great Circle Jerk, which not only had GPU hardware ray tracing as a minimum requirement, but also restricted full ray tracing, path tracing, to NVIDIA GPUs only. Not even AMD's flagship 7900 XTX could use it. Doom: The Dark Ages also introduced ray tracing as a requirement. In other words, your old NVIDIA GTX GPU simply isn't good enough anymore. Well, it's still good enough, they're just blocking you from using it on certain games, so they can force you to upgrade. Like, oh wow, I can see the shadow get represented more clearly on Aloy's nutsack. Totally worth the extra $1,000. You can tell that graphics really stagnated when they literally have to force ray tracing in order to get people to upgrade their GPUs. The thing is, I would have absolutely no problem upgrading every 2 years if there was genuinely a big leap in graphical fidelity. Back in the day, every couple years you saw massive leaps in graphical fidelity. But how many leaps have we actually seen in graphical fidelity since 2020? Barely any, to be honest. Red Dead Redemption 2 still looks better than most modern games that come out today, even those that focus heavily on graphics. And the most funny part about all of this is Red Dead Redemption 2 recommended some low-ass card like a 970. Now, it seems some RTX owners are also being pushed into the same category as older GTX GPUs. Benchmarks from the upcoming RPG Monster Hunter Wilds show the RTX 3060 struggling to maintain a consistent 60 FPS at 1080p. Although the game doesn't release until February 28th, Capcom has provided a free benchmark PC tool that lets you test how well Monster Hunter Wilds will run on your system before making the final purchase. And spoiler alert, it's not looking good for mid-range PC gamers. I don't know if I'd say it's mid-range, I'd definitely say it's the lower end of mid-range if it is mid-range. However, I still think it should be able to play at 1080p 60, especially with an upscaler. I mean, the entire reason an upscaler exists is so that older cards can last for longer. Yet this 4-year-old GPU can't even play at 1080p 60? It's also worth noting that this is pretty much the GPU that your console has if you have a base Xbox Series X or PlayStation 5, meaning the just play on console argument isn't really going to work here because you're going to get shitty performance on console as well. Either the game is going to be upscaled so it's going to look very blurry, especially when you upscale at 1080p, or it's going to use frame generation giving you lots of input lag. There is absolutely no goddamn reason why games should not be able to run at a native 1080p 60 frames per second in the big ol' 25. Daniel Owen, a tech enthusiast on YouTube, shared a performance analysis of Monster Hunter Wilds on an RTX 3060, paired with a Ryzen 5 5600X. The test was done on 3 different settings, one based on the game's automatic suggestion, medium settings with DLSS set to performance, medium settings without any upscaling, and ultra settings without any upscaling. Things don't look great as the system struggled to maintain a consistent 60 frames per second in intensive gameplay scenes across all 3 tests. So yeah, you will not be getting 60 frames per second on your console, and you will not be getting 60 frames per second on your RTX 3060. But what about the 4060, because that's kind of the entry-level card at the moment. Yeah, you're gonna be dropping down into the 40s, even on an RTX 4060? You can see the guy is almost getting an average of 60 frames per second with 1080p medium on a 4060, but that is just not good enough, especially considering the graphical look of the game. Even with 1080p medium DLSS quality, you are still dropping into the 40s. Even with 1080p low, you are dropping into the 40s on a 4060. What the hell is going on? At medium settings with DLSS performance enabled, the RTX 3060 averaged 61 frames per second. However, there were several instances where the frame rate dropped below 40, especially in gameplay sections. Yeah, the entire point of a video game, the gameplay. Additionally, during cutscenes, there were significant FPS spikes. This was the result at medium settings with an internal resolution of 540p, upscaled to 1080p. Yikes. For the medium settings with 1080p native resolution, the GPU scored an average FPS of 48, with demanding areas barely pushing the GPU above the 30 frames per second mark. Damn bro, 2005 call it, they want their performance back. With ultra settings and DLSS disabled, the performance was predictably poor, with heavy fluctuations during cutscenes and gameplay dropping to 28 FPS at times. That said, the GPU wasn't the only component put under stress. The CPU was also tested in town areas with a large number of NPCs. In these situations, you could see the GPU being bottlenecked by the CPU, causing the FPS to dip below the 40 range. So not only are you going to have to spend a decent chunk of money on a good GPU to play this game at mid-ass settings, but you're also going to need a good CPU. The RTX 3060 has long been the most popular GPU on Steam, and has even continued to be a bestseller in 2025. While this card will eventually make way for newer generations, it still holds the top spot according to the latest Steam hardware and software survey, accounting for 5.06% of all users on Steam. The state of modern gaming. Absolute dog shit. As you can see from the benchmarks, the game is not only heavily GPU intensive, but also CPU intensive. Even an RTX 3060, which isn't as old as the game makes it to be, can only deliver a playable experience on medium settings. This means the gameplay you're getting with this popular card isn't great, with graphic quality which we'd say is lackluster by many people's standards. Now it is worth noting that it is still a beta and they may fix it, but I mean, I'm not going to get my hopes up too high, and we do have to think about de novo getting added, which is known to kill performance. But that is going to do it for today's video. Let me know what you guys think of the performance in Monster Hunter Wilds. What frame rates did you get on your rig, and did you use frame generation or DLSS? Anyway, peace.